Thank you, Mr. Jaitley, for joining us in CNBC-TV18. The last few weeks, we've got a slew of good economic data, be it the CPI, the IIP, the core sector data. However, consumption has not picked up. So if you look at auto sales, if you look at property sales, etc., why do you think that is the reason, and are your growth targets on track?
You see, even when the process of calculating or projecting future growth in this country under the new series is gaining majority, I think the most authentic data is the revenue collection. Revenue collection is real. There is no question of calculation or any calculation opinion or lapses. Now, the fact that indirect tax revenue is going up and going up quite reasonably well, I think our macroeconomic parameters are under control. Direct tax revenue also has started moving up. And the likelihood of falling short in terms of revenue, if at all, is going to be very marginal. In fact, in indirect tax collection, the projected growth is more than expected. So we are going to go beyond the target. Now, if that is the position, it comprises of excise, customs duty and service tax. So if excise collections go up, and I'm not taking the additional revenue measures into consideration, I'm just taking on year-on-year basis. If excise goes up, that means manufacturing is increasing. If customs goes up, that means raw material and capital goods are coming into the country, which is a good sign for the future. And if service tax goes up, that means the services are expanding. So these three are good parameters. So I am anticipating a good rate of growth. We probably will cross last year's figure. And compared to what's happening in the rest of the world, it's going to be very significantly higher. Now, to translate into consumption, that has to increase. Domestic demand has to increase. It depends on a large number of factors. Rural demand may depend on the monsoons, which obviously for 2 consecutive years has been less than normal. So that's one area which we are of concern. Secondly, now that over the last 12 months or 13 months, the repo rates have come down 125 basis points. So I think the Reserve Bank has done well to balance growth with inflation, and therefore the rates have been moving downwards. The banks are now in the process of passing over. Only part of it has been passed over. So as the interest rates go down, then the possibility of people going in for housing, etc., will increase. As far as auto sales are concerned, the auto sales are on the rise. And now with the festival season coming, new models are going to come, interest rates are down. And during the festival season, I think there will be a reasonable amount of boom as far as auto sales are concerned and other purchases are concerned. Real estate is a key driver. And therefore, we've had a lot of surplus capacity as far as real estate is concerned. People are waiting for the rates, etc., to come down. And as the housing rates come down, I think the real estate also will pick up.
There is a lag of what, about 90 basis points in the system, which has not been passed on by the banks. It's your first interview since the governor cut rates by 50 basis points. What is your conversation with banks been like? Are they going to pass that on? And do you think the governor should also cut rates the rest of 2015 or at least by 31st of March?
That's an assessment which the RBI has to make. And I must say to the credit of RBI that RBI has done a fair job. If over a period of the last 12-13 months, 125 basis points has been cut down, everybody has to concede that RBI has done well as far as that is concerned. Now, what they do in future will depend on how the inflation targets are met. And I think we must trust their judgment. Now, as far as the banks are concerned, the banks have 2 concerns. They say we didn't raise the rates when the repo rates were going up. We were below the red line. And therefore, we'll always be a little away from what the kind of cuts that the RBI gives. Secondly, a lot of them are also concerned about their own balance sheets because, let's be very clear, the banks have been under stress. Banks have been under stress, A, because of some wrong decisions they must have taken in the past, B, because of sectors like steel, sectors like highways, power, stalled projects, And I say that with a sense of responsibility that the previous government did virtually nothing in relation to these sectors. So when a surge of steel was coming in and the steel companies were owing large amounts of money to the banks, or when the discoms were owing large amounts of money to the banks, the highways projects were struck and they were contributing to the NPAs or the stalled projects. At least I can't even find a single step that they took. Now, it's only in the last 1 year that we've started taking steps and started reviving each one of these sectors. So I do hope, as the health of the banks itself improves, their ability then to pass on larger amount of interest benefit as far as the borrowers are concerned would increase.
While we're speaking of the state of the banks, discoms I wanted to talk to you about, because Mr. Piyush Goyal has said that they've virtually sealed a deal with the states. By when can we see that being rolled out? And is hiking the FRBM limit enough? What can the centre do?
You see, the states have to take a decision in this. You can't borrow from banks in order to subsidize the consumers, because somebody has to pay the banks. Either the taxpayer pays or the consumers pay. And it's only obvious that we must get Indian consumers into the habit for paying for the services that they use. Unless the users pay, any kind of facilities won't develop. And therefore, Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Power Minister, is working in that direction with the states, so that slowly the defaulting states at least can start recovering more from their consumers and start paying the banks. Now, the time limit will depend on how quickly they enter into and seal the deal with the states. But I see no option.
Because of Bihar elections.
No, but Bihar is not one of those states which is affected. You see, first of all, it's Uttar Pradesh, it's Rajasthan, it's Haryana and Tamil Nadu. These are the first 4 states. And then there are a few other states which have to take a decision. But then, obviously, the states will have to assume that it is their responsibility, even though the DISCOM may be a separate legal entity. It's not very far distinct as far as from the state is concerned. It's not a private company.
So no timeline as yet when that could go to cabinet. And is hiking FRBM limit enough as well?
No, you see, at least it becomes a part of the sovereign state debt in that event. And once that happens, then the state has to be concerned about the repayment itself.
We've also talked about banks. I should ask you, this Bank of Baroda scam that has broken out, how concerned are you? Is there a fear it might spill into other banks? We've already seen one.
It's a matter of investigation. And it is some people, unscrupulous people, who have managed to beat the system. They've beaten the system by making sure it's not that a large amount of money itself is deposited in cash. It's the same amount which could have been rotated again and again. But the fact that this has been done either with the object of achieving an unlawful gain in terms of duty drawbacks or some such activity, that will depend on the nature of investigation. Now you have the CBI investigating, you have the ED investigating, you have the SFIO investigating, you have the tax people looking into it. So once these reports, the investigative agencies form a prima facie opinion, I think it's only then the magnitude, the nature and the kind of people involved in it, I think will absolutely become clear.
While we're talking about wrongdoing, today we've seen the CBI court actually giving a clean chit to Shamal Ghosh. I wanted to get your reaction on this.
I think Shamal Ghosh was an outstanding, honest officer. It was highly improper for the CBI to have prosecuted an officer of that kind. And the background of the prosecution was very clear. The UPA government was riddled with telecom scams. And 2 of their ministers one has been prosecuted, one is being prosecuted. So 2 of their telecom ministers were prosecuted. When the 3rd gentleman took over as the telecom minister, he thought of a new strategy. So in order to deflect from the UPA's telecom scams, he wanted to concentrate on what he thought was an NDA scam. So he precisely chose a retired judge. Please tell me which are the NDA scams. The judge gave him a convenient report. And the only charge was that when the late Mr. Pramod Mahajan was the telecom minister and the Shamal Ghosh was the secretary, the spectrum user charges were not properly fixed. Now, fixation of tariff is an executive function. There are hundreds of considerations which go into fixation of traffic. There was no criminality involved. And therefore, they decided to prosecute an honest civil servant, and then some business houses got vicariously added to it. I'm extremely glad that the special judge has vindicated a very honest officer who must have faced a lot of harassment. In fact, I had consistently maintained even at that time that the prosecution was politically motivated. It was for extraneous reasons, and I'm glad that the judge today has said that it is for extraneous considerations. I had way back in April 2013, when the charge sheet was filed, in writing commented on this charge sheet as being motivated by extraneous considerations, and that's exactly what the court seems to have said today.
Yeah, you did say that in April of 2013. Mr. Jaitley, while we're talking about telecom, you met with Mr. Vittorio Colau, the global chief of Vodafone, yesterday. This is, of course, you know, if I may say so, a political hot potato. What happens next? Despite your repeated assurances to foreign investors, they still seem to be wary of the fact that retro tax has not been repealed. What I wanted to ask you, is there any reconsideration?
I don't think retro tax is an issue. As far as the principle of retro tax is concerned, it is certainly not an issue, for the reason that this government has done enough to put those fears at rest. We are neither going to legislate retrospectively, nor are any notices under the old retrospective legislations being issued to anybody. I think all foreign investors in India are absolutely assured as far as matter is concerned. As far as the Vodafone retrospective matter is concerned, which is in arbitration, I don't comment on it because I have already recused myself for reasons that I had professionally dealt with something on the similar lines, and therefore that's not a subject that I discuss with him.
So it was a good meeting with Mr. Vittorio Colau. He's made commitments to India.
I think so. They discussed their business plans in India. We also made our suggestions with regard to the telecom, particularly with regard to the quality of service which needs to be improved in India.
Call drops, I would imagine, and they only want more towers, it seems, the telecom companies. My final question to do with the fisc, Mr. Jaitley. After 8 years, we have seen a fiscal surplus. Are you going to, 3.9% is your target for the fiscal deficit. Will you spend more? It certainly looks like you may have to increase your spending to meet 3.9% and actually not fall to 3.8, etc.
You see, my first priority is going to be to spend this money. Spending will lead to economic activity. Economic activity will lead to growth. This is a time when we need growth. Bringing it down from 4 to 3.9% is not a serious challenge. We'll comfortably be able to do it. But whatever surplus we get or whatever resources we get, I think we'll try and spend them.
And disinvestment, it has not kept up the momentum for obvious reasons, but the fact is 69,000.
The disinvestment, we had a very high target. The only challenge in disinvestment is that there are a large number of metal companies, and this may not be the right time for metal companies.
So you will have that deficit to take care of then?
We'll try and see how the deficit can be met.
There's no plan B? And the strategic hotel sale, that hasn't happened?
You see, disinvestment department is working hard. They've come out with several issues. There is still half a year to go.
Thank you, Mr. Jaitley, for joining us here.